This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in places that could expose you to identity theft. That's why LifeLock monitors millions of data points every second. If your identity is stolen, their US-based restoration specialist will fix it, guaranteed or your money back. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
John, I see we have a very, very dear guest who has been giving us updates ever since the laptops of Hunter Biden came into the possession of the New York Post and Miranda Devine.
Well, she's always been a terrific reporter, and the New York Post. And Miranda Devine, you got some hot news for us this morning.
Hey, good morning, John. Well, look, I think that the story that's really grabbed my attention most today is this story about the cover-up of the COVID pandemic, the origins of Wuhan, and we now find that our own intelligence services covered up. Surprisingly,
it made the front page of the New York Post today.
That's right. And look, this is something, I guess it's not going to be too much of a surprise to WABC listeners or New York Post readers or Fox viewers, because we've covered various aspects of this cover-up over the years. But now it's sort of gone mainstream, and we know that the intelligence chiefs silenced researchers in the Defense Department and the FBI, who both of them said that COVID-19 most likely leaked from that Chinese lab in Wuhan. And yet we had Anthony Fauci and various other CIA, etc., trying to tell us, oh, no, there's no evidence it could have occurred naturally. Well, that defied common sense. It defied the evidence. And now there is proof that that was a lie.
Now, why would they do it? Was it the political bosses that urged the agents to push it that way, or was it the agents themselves?
Look,
just your opinion.
I think initially it was the agencies themselves, because remember, this was under the Trump administration that the virus broke out. I think that they knew early on that there had been a disaster in Wuhan, and they knew what was going on there because the Defense Department itself had funded some of the research there into these genetically engineered or Frankenstein viruses, these viruses that were altered and made to be more lethal to humans using a particular type of manipulation of the genetic material called gain-of-function research. And so that was done sort of against the American will, because scientists had been worried about that research, and under the Obama administration there'd actually been a pause on it, a moratorium on using that research. And so what happens? It gets outsourced to China, and they have not very good standards in their biosafety in their laboratories, and so an accident was more likely to happen.
Now, Miranda Devine, this is Curtis Lewa. Red China is our enemy. Why would we subcontract this kind of work to our number one enemy in the world? This is, I think, incomprehensible to everyone. Look, I'm opposed to dealing with that to begin with, but if you were going to do it, you're going to subcontract it. Why wouldn't you do it with an allied nation as opposed to a nation that, let's face it, is focused on superseding us and maybe running us one day?
Look, I think there is some evidence that the U.S. intelligence services were concerned that China was developing a bioweapon, and they wanted to spy on them using some of the scientists who were collaborating with them. That's why they were given the green light to collaborate. Now, if that is the case, and there is some evidence for it, what a complete disaster. Millions of people dead as a result of America giving China its intellectual property in order to spy on it. If that's what happened, no wonder they wanted to cover it up.
Well, based on your front page story of the New York Post that already Miranda Devine has gone viral all over the world, first call to the Virgin Islands this morning with Joe Biden is with Jill is from Dr. Fauci. You talked about a pre-pardon. Would you get me that pre-pardon now? Because I'm going to get prosecuted on this because of Miranda Devine.
Miranda, please comment on the current communist Chinese crisis coming around the corner into 2025.
Well, there's a bigger crisis in Korea this morning. They impeached the president of Korea.
Impeached the president of Korea. And Miranda, the communist Chinese have killed hundreds of thousands of pigs, hundreds of millions of pigs, even more birds. That pathogen is spread to Canada, is spread to the U.S., has infected the dairy herds and animal livestock all across the west coast of America, and now affecting farmers. And they didn't warn us that the pathogens from the Wuhan lab spread to the agriculture region, mutated, and now it's humans and animals that are at risk, and it's spreading across this country and spreading across the Canadian provinces. Could you please comment on that and the Korean situation, as John references well?
Well, I mean, isn't that frightening? I don't think we should go crazy about it. And thank goodness that it's Donald Trump that's coming in. This bird flu in a pig, H5N1 it's called.
Yes.
It's been a concern, I think, for a long time, bird flu, and having it jump species is another concern. But, look, isn't it a coincidence that it was... And this is what I've been concerned about, that basically the Wuhan COVID-19 virus was very successful in destroying Donald Trump's candidacy for re-election back in 2020, because really he was flying high until then, and everybody was frightened, and Joe Biden sort of gave this impression that he was this avuncular man with great empathy, and of course Americans would be saved by him. Well, it turned out to be the opposite of the truth. More people died of COVID under Joe Biden than under Donald Trump. But, it has concerned me that these people who covered up the COVID-19 virus...
I think we lost Miranda there.
No, I'm here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
These people that covered it up, they don't want Donald Trump to expose them, and he will. And what will they do to stop him? And what better way, I guess, than to unleash another virus? And let's hope that's not the truth. And let's hope that the Trump administration, when they come in, in 3 weeks' time, have actually got they've got on the ground running, and they know what to expect. And I'm sure they are forewarned and totally aware of the sort of evil of these people.
What bothered me, Miranda, was the fact that the Chinese closed down the airports out of Wuhan immediately. Yeah. So like 3 weeks in advance, and kept them going to Italy and Europe.
Exactly.
And kept them going to the United States. I mean, why would they, isn't there anybody smart enough in the United States to ask China, how come you closed down your airports going to your country and you kept them coming to our country?
Well, Donald Trump was saying it. He certainly said that. Look, I think at the beginning, we were just too concerned about making sure that the virus was contained in America and kept out as much as possible, which obviously wasn't possible, but and just dealing with this new virus, to actually worry too much about inflicting any retribution on China. But, if it was an American engineered virus outsourced to China, it's very difficult to blame the Chinese entirely. But certainly you can blame President Xi for that really malign decision to share the virus with the rest of the world, but not with China. Didn't work for them very well.
Now, Miranda Devine, you made your journalistic career first in your home country of Australia. We've seen a lot of Aussies come over and just dominate news coverage. What is it about your training there? I remember Steve Dunleavy when he came over,
Yes.
Cole Allen, a whole host of them. What is it about your preparation and training there that once you decide to come to the United States, you just seem to break stories that American journalists either decide not to pursue or don't have the strength to make arguments that their publication should be covering it?
Well, I mean, my training actually was in America, so I can't say anything special about the Australian system. I think the American system is actually, having been in both and also worked a little time in England in Fleet Street, I actually think the American system is superior. But what's gone wrong with it is that the universities got woke and they started propagandizing their students and brainwashing them into becoming activists instead of, observers of history and being fair and balanced, and which was the way I was taught initially. Something went wrong in the last 20 years and has infected the rest of the universities. So I think that's, number one, a problem. And I just think that too many American journalists were sort of concerned. Certainly I know with the Hunter Biden laptop story, they were just concerned about, I guess, their peers and looking like fools or whatever. And it just so happened that there was an Australian editor, my editor, Cole Allen, who'd brought me over from Australia, who was the editor of the New York Post. And he just liked a story for a story. It wouldn't have mattered where it came from. If it was true, it was a big story. It was 3 weeks before the election. It was high stakes, but he had the cojones to do that. And I think that's, there's something about News Corporation and Rupert Murdoch that allows that kind of swashbuckling courage that maybe, other media outfits are more cautious about and more caring. They care more about the opinion of their peers. And certainly the morning that we published that story, there was a lot of shaming going on social media about anybody sharing our story because it was just, so, I don't know, tawdry or whatever their problem was with it. It was a great story, and it wasn't about Hunter Biden and his crack addiction. It was about Joe Biden lying to the American people and saying that he knew nothing about his son Hunter's overseas business dealings. And here we had an email from one of Hunter Biden's overseas business partners thanking him for the meeting with his father, then the vice president.
Miranda, before we sign off, my problem with President Biden and my problem with Hunter, I think there's a lot more that we don't know about. I mean, when you look at what's going on with the Panama Canal and the Chinese controlling it, and what's going on with Iran, and for 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, the Red Sea is closed. There's something smells. And I hope we find out, because the American people deserve the truth.
Yeah, look, I 100% agree, and I think it's a great pity that, more wasn't exposed about the Biden family and their influence peddling when the Republicans were able to. But there were so many obstructions. They only got into the House in after the midterms in 2022. They didn't really have a lot of time, and there was so much obstruction. I do hope that there is an appetite to further investigate this, not for retribution against Joe Biden, but to find out exactly how compromised he was and what sort of concessions were made to countries like China.
Miranda Devine, thank you for everything you do for America and bringing out the truth. And you do a great job at the New York Post. And God bless you and God bless America, and have a happy New Year.
Oh, and same to you, John and Curtis, and all your wonderful listeners.
Thank you. Thank you, Miranda.